Howdy everyone! So today I just want to talk about some of the lenses that I use. In my 5 years of practicing and developing my skills with photography, I've been able to accumulate quite the collection of lenses through my own purchases, finding them in my own house with one of them, and being gifted them, which I'm super grateful for. But here is just my sweet little collection. There's more, I just can't hold them all in my hand, but we're going to go through them all today, and I'm going to tell you guys what I use them for most of the time. First up, we have my Canon 50mm 2.8 lens. I use this mostly for portraits and sometimes with nature shots, like mostly astrophotography. This is my absolute favorite lens to use for portraits because of the low aperture that it has, and it creates that blurred background. So you can really make the foreground stick out from the background and emphasize the portrait that you were taking. It's a prime lens, so it only has one focal length. But like I said, it's my favorite to use for portraits. I take this with me everywhere I go. And I've also found that it's one of my two best lenses to use for astrophotography, because it can get that lower aperture, so it's able to take in more light. And so these are some of my favorite shots that I've taken with my 50mm. Most of them consist of portrait shots. Next, we have my 24mm lens. I strictly use this for portraits as of now. I haven't found any other use for it just yet, but it's like the 50mm lens in that it has one focal length, which is a wide angle, which can be a good contrast to the 50mm, because this one does also have the low aperture. I think it's 2.0 or 2.8, somewhere around there. I'm not 100% sure, but it is also a Canon lens again. But it's a good contrast with the 50mm lens because of the wide angle that it has. So here are some comparison shots of the 50mm versus the 25 and what those pictures look like. And then here are just some of my favorite shots that I've taken with my 24mm lens. Next, I have still kept the lenses that came with the camera. There is another one that has more of a zoom. I think it's a 70 to 200, but it's away in a bag because I have another one that I've replaced it with. But I do still keep these lenses just in case I don't want to break out my more expensive ones. But the last couple of years I've been able to replace these lenses, so I'm going to show you guys next the ones that I use instead of these kit lenses. The first one that I got was my 70 to 200mm lens. This was gifted to me by my grandparents, which I'm super grateful for. I've been able to use this for shooting sports, events coverage, and I hope to use it in some of my nature shots. I haven't been able to do that yet, but hopefully very soon. This is a zoom lens, obviously with the 70 to 200mm, with a low aperture of 1.8, so you still get that super blurred background that I talked about with the 50mm and 24mm lenses. This lens has honestly stepped up my game so much, especially with shooting sports. I was able to get like the more crisp look and still be able to have that long range zoom. So it's a very versatile lens, and I've been able to do a lot of things with it thanks to the zoom and the low aperture. Here are some of my favorite sports shots that I've taken with this lens. And here are some of my favorite coverage shots that I've taken with this lens. And I'm also looking forward to being able to take this lens with me on new nature adventures, like to different national parks mostly. A lot of the state parks haven't really required me to need a zoom range like this one will give me. A lot of the nature shots that I get at state parks are very close range. But I'm hoping when I go to like some mountainous areas that I'm able to take this lens with me and get some cool like zoom shots of that. Also, if you ever cover anything that requires you to sit a little further away from the action, but you still want to get those close-up shots, this is a great lens for that. Like I've said, I've used this for sports and events coverage. so I was able to kind of stay on the outside of an event that was happening but still get those close-up shots. So lastly is my 16 to 35 millimeter lens, which I'm actually filming on right now. I use this mostly for nature shots and sometimes for portraits. This is another one of the lenses that has replaced the kit lens that I have. I take this with me on any adventure that I go on because it allows for a lower aperture than the kit lens had, but also has the wider angle that I want for some of the nature shots, and still zooms in just a little bit. I also bring this lens with me when I go do group portrait sessions because it makes it easier to change focal lengths when working with multiple people, so you don't have to like keep running back and forth. You can just kind of zoom in and out. But you do have to be careful with zooming all the way out so you don't fully distort the people that you're shooting. This 16 to 35 does only have an aperture low point of 4.0. I could have gone lower. I think I saw a lens that went down to 2.8, but I didn't have the money to spend on that right now, and I just really wanted this lens because of the sharp detail quality that it has provided me. And so these are some of my favorite shots with my 16 to 35 millimeter lens. This is just the small collection that I've been able to gather over the last 5 years. I'm super happy with where I'm at now. I am looking to upgrade my camera body soon in order to be able to utilize these lenses further and just make the picture quality a little better. However, I do believe that lenses are truly what changes the picture that you take. So if you are just working with your kit lenses right now and you want to make an upgrade on something, I highly recommend starting with your lenses first, because the lenses were the thing that have ultimately changed the way that I take pictures and the way that my pictures look. And so I highly recommend upgrading your lenses first and then working towards upgrading your camera bodies, because those can also be a little bit more expensive. So thanks for listening to all of the lenses that I use. I hope this might have been a little bit helpful to anybody interested in photography. So thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.